Every single one of us is looking for an edge, right? That little bit of insight, that one thing that lets us see what the rest of the market is missing. But where does a real, legal investment edge actually come from? Well, today we're going to dig into the world of informational inefficiencies. These are the gaps, the cracks in the market where really valuable information hasn't quite been baked into a stock's price yet.
To really get our heads around this, let's kick things off with this fantastic experiment. It challenges a core idea that a lot of us in finance just take for granted. The setup is simple, but wow, the implications are huge.
Okay, let's play a little thought experiment. What if I could give you tomorrow's Wall Street Journal right now? The front page a full 36 hours before anyone else. You'd think making a profitable trade would be a sure thing, right? I mean, it's practically a license to print money. Or is it?
Well, this isn't just a thought experiment. An investor named Victor Hagani actually did this. He got a group of almost 120 students, and get this, they were all doing their masters in finance and gave them this exact crystal ball. They got the future headlines, $50, and were told to trade. And remember, these aren't just random people. They're supposed to know their stuff.
So, after thousands of trades, what happened? The results were, well, they were stunning. Even knowing the future, they were only right about the market's direction 51.5% of the time. Think about that. That's basically a coin flip. Just incredible.
So not only was their accuracy terrible, the actual results were even worse. About half of the students actually lost money, and 1 out of every 6 of them went totally bust, lost the whole $50. This proves a huge point, doesn't it? Just having the information is nowhere near enough.
But here's where it gets really interesting. They ran the same game with a small group of actual professional traders. The students, they basically broke even. The pros, they walked away with an average gain of 130%. How? Well, yeah, they were a bit more accurate, but the real magic was in their discipline. They knew when to sit on their hands and do nothing, and when they did bet, they sized their positions based on how confident they were. That's the difference.
So that whole experiment just perfectly tees up what we're talking about today. A real edge, a sustainable edge, isn't just about what you know. It's about a whole process. How you get information, how you make sense of it, and how you act on it when others just don't.
And that brings us to this core idea, informational inefficiency. So what is it? Think of it as a gap, an opportunity that opens up when you have information that's different from what everyone else has, that the market isn't expecting. And, this is the most important part, you correctly interpret what it actually means while the rest of the market gets it wrong.
Okay, that's the what. Now for the how. How do you actually find these things in the wild? Well, there are 3 main paths, and we're going to start with the first one. This is kind of the classic detective work approach.
There was this legendary investor, Phil Fisher, and he had a method he called scuttlebutt. It wasn't about getting some single secret tip. Nope. He was all about legwork. He'd go out and talk to a company's suppliers, their customers, even former employees, anyone he could. He was trying to piece together a completely different picture of the company than the one Wall Street had.
Nowadays, we call this the mosaic theory, and it's a perfect name for it. The idea is you're collecting all these little, seemingly insignificant bits of information, weak signals, that are totally legal and often public. On their own, they mean nothing. But when you put them all together, like tiles in a mosaic, suddenly a clear, valuable picture emerges that nobody else is seeing.
All right, path number 2. This one I find absolutely fascinating because it has nothing to do with finding new information. It's about just paying attention to what's already out there, to important stuff that is, for whatever reason, being completely overlooked.
You want a perfect example? Look at this company, Entremed. Back in late 1997, some huge scientific news about them gets published in major journals. The stock? Crickets. Nothing happens. Then, 6 months later, the exact same information gets a big splashy story on the front page of the New York Times, and boom, the stock shoots up from about $12 to over $50 in a single day. The information hadn't changed, only the amount of attention it was getting.
And that's not just a one-off story. The data really proves this out. Studies have looked at Bloomberg News, and they found that if a story hits the front page, the market prices it in almost instantly. But if that same kind of news is buried somewhere less obvious, it can take days for the stock to fully react. That lag, that's your window of opportunity.
Okay, so on to our third and final path. This edge comes from your ability to see the ripple effects, to understand the deeper implications of a piece of news when the market just finds it, well, too complicated to deal with right away.
Let me give you a simple example.
Let's say a big study comes out that proves eating chocolate makes you live longer. What happens? A pure play company like Hershey's, their stock is going to pop, like immediately. But what about some giant messy conglomerate that happens to own a small chocolate brand? It'll take the market way longer to connect the dots and figure out the impact. The complexity creates a delay.
You see the exact same thing in supply chains all the time. A big company, say a major automaker, reports fantastic earnings. The market reacts to their stock right away. But it's often surprisingly slow to realize, hey, this is also amazing news for their key parts suppliers. Again, the information is out there for everyone to see, but the second-order effects are hidden by that complexity.
Okay, so we've talked about these three paths. The big question is, how do you actually use this? How do you turn this theory into a practical playbook you can use when you're looking at global equities?
It all comes down to building a process. It's about consciously asking yourself these questions for any potential investment. First, are you doing the scuttlebutt work to build a unique mosaic? Second, are you actively looking for important news that's not making headlines? And third, are you digging into complex situations like supply chains to find those second-order effects before everyone else?
So I'll leave you with this one thought to guide your own work. Forget about finding a crystal ball. The real game is about asking yourself, what crucial piece of information is the market completely ignoring today? What's hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone like you to pay attention, do the analysis, and connect the dots? Find the answer to that, and you might just find your next great investment.